Hello and welcome to Simplifying Rural Marketing by Ajay. Friends, I'm on a mission of simplifying rural marketing, and that's the reason I keep on meeting a lot of people. So this time, I'm there to discuss on the consumer behavior and discussing on consumer behavior since rural being a almost about 6,40,000 villages, there is a lot of social, cultural, and so many things which is there in the markets that keep on changing over every 100 kilometers. So to discuss this on the same, we have with us Mr. Farid Ahmed. Mr. Farid Ahmed is the marketing head of Apollo Tyres, and he's been looking after the Middle East, Africa, and APEC regions. He has spent almost 2 decades in the rural markets, and he has overall been to all the aspects of the marketing. So, right from the new product development to consumer value mapping and so on. So, to discuss on the same, we have Farid Ahmed with us. Welcome, Farid.
Hi, Ajay. Thank you so much.
So, Farid, I just wanted to understand what is the consumer buying behavior in rural India and how do they get influenced? And further to add more, since you have been handling Asia, Africa, Middle East, there are so many regions you have been traveled across. How does it vary from market to market? And what is the general consumer behavior?
Hi, Ajay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me on this show. I've been hearing the show, and you have been really on a mission to simplify rural, I must say that. And
Yeah.
it's a great pleasure to be with you today. So, and
Mhm.
all those listeners who have joined in, namaskar and good evening to all of you. Ajay, you have
Thank you
asked
so
a
much.
very important question, which is consumer buying behavior. And buying
Yeah.
behavior is very, very important in both urban and rural areas. Probably that
Mhm.
is one big thing which differentiates between urban consumer and the rural consumer. So we have been, all
Mhm.
our marketing or management days, we have studied that there are various factors which influence consumers' buying behavior. So there are personal factors,
Mhm.
social factors, psychological factors, economical factors. Uh, but
Yes.
per se, if you look at the rural consumer, personal factor has been little subdued with rural customer over a period of time. So rural consumer always has been more of a social buyer than a personal buyer. And why do I
Mhm.
say that? And I say more of that because of my experiences. His decision has not been used to be only on his own, right? So his society will decide for him. His friends will decide for him. His family will decide for him. So it used to be a collective social decision and less of a personal decision. And
Mhm.
we also used to talk about the influence which he gets. And that's where the other factors, which are the social factors, become very, very important, and cultural factors. So these two factors are very critical. While economics is something which works for everyone, urban and rural, uh, so plays on rural consumer as well. But social and cultural are the two most important influencing factors for a rural consumer. Why do I say that? Is earlier we used to say that influencers in rural markets are those sarpanches and postmasters and the headmaster of the village school and all that.
Mhm.
So why were they the influencers? The reason behind that is they were the connection between the rural customer, I mean, the rural areas and the outside world, which is the urban area. So, not
Mhm.
everyone had an access to the outside world. Plus, the illiteracy was very, very high. So, all what is happening in the urban used to be, known to the rural folks through these people, and they were
Mhm.
the ones who were reading the newspapers probably or listening. So they were their window to the world, and that's why they were the big influences. But that has changed over a period of time. Literacy has really gone up. A lot of migration has happened across families in the rural areas. So those kids or those people who went outside to the cities for livelihood, they got exposed to the outside world. So that's why the impact of social was very high earlier. Today it is there, and whatever we say, the caste system still plays a very important role in the rural areas, but I would say that it has softened a bit. So not completely like in urban, but it has softened a bit in the rural areas as well. So social impact is now more from the close friends, relatives, and his own family than the larger ecosystem of the village. So that's how this shift has happened in by the thinking of the rural consumer. And I think we'll talk about the other mediums which I've opened for him, like social media and all later. I will like to dwell upon that. But his knowledge level and his literacy improvement has reduced the impact of the social to a certain extent on him. But culture still is very, very important for the rural. And that is where the nuances come in. So culture is so different that it varies from, within a area or within a state, you have 3-4 clusters. Everywhere the culture is different. And interestingly, while, urban consumer is becoming more and more homogeneous from a cultural perspective, but rural are still, so in spite of the fact that they may be exposed to the urban life, but they are still rooted. So those roots are still intact, right? So the leaves are coming in, the branches are growing, but they are still rooted. And those roots are deep into the culture. And that's why the behavior also depends on which culture they come from. It's very important for a marketer to understand that which particular market he is operating in and what are the cultural nuances in those markets. So that's another important factor. Economics obviously plays a role, but as the income level has gone up in the rural areas as well, there are more income streams which have opened up. There is remittance money which is coming in from the urban. So and the aspirations have gone up. So now economic factors have started playing down slightly different than. So basically, he has moved up in the Maslow's triangle or pyramid to the next level, and is seeking out. So his decision making is changing. He is deciding basis his own experience a lot than what others are telling him. But interestingly, Ajay, I would just dwell one bit more on this experience point. When I say experience, it's not only his own experience. Like when we have to buy a particular product, we normally go by, what else has been my experience, and not so much try to understand from our friends and families that how has been their experience. But they are today deciding basis their own experiences, but that experience is more of a collective experience. So within his friend circle, within his relative circle, the circle of influence, their experience also is his experience, and that is also plays a lot on his mind when he is deciding. But this is when he is more into the thinking mode that what he has to buy, and is trying to zero down on a particular product or a brand.
But how do you see this in other markets? So you in Africa and other regions, SAARC nations and others. Is there the similar this thing is there, or there is some change in it?
So I guess SAARC is quite similar to India. So if you look at the markets of Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, I mean, these markets are quite similar to Indian markets. But as we go into other markets like, say, Thailand or Indonesia and Malaysia, or you come down Middle East and Africa side, then every market is a bit different from other market. So culturally, still, those markets are also very deep rooted into their cultures. I would say in some extent, even more than Indian markets, especially the Southeast Asian markets. To deal with them, you really have to be very appreciative of their culture. They are very touchy about their cultures. They're very proud also about their culture. So you have to respect their culture. You have to make sure that, but they're very soft, noble, and forthcoming. And while yes, I think this community is close-knitted community outside India as well. So those cultural differences definitely come in, but economic and other factors play the similar way that they play here.
So, can you state any three instinctive challenges that you face in the rural markets, and how do you mitigate that?
I think the biggest challenge rural market brings for any marketeer is through its heterogeneity. That's a challenge which every marketeer tries to mitigate. Is a marketeer wants clusters, homogeneous clusters to which you can really easily talk to, easily customize your product to suit their requirements, design one communication and reach out to them. But rural market is the biggest challenge is that how do you really put them into the homogeneous buckets, because they are very, very heterogeneous, and heterogeneity is across. So while language and culture and all those things are definitely there, but even the same product usage pattern itself is so different in the rural markets. I mean, if I take the example from my own industry, which is the tire industry, while the tractor is the same machine, which is used for the same purpose, which is in the field, preparing the land for the next crop and all that. But then there are other heterogeneities come in. The soil types are so different. The way the crops they grow are so different. So the heterogeneity is at every level. So that variation is there. One is the challenge to understand. And one way which I have understood to mitigate is this is do not try to find out only the vertical buckets. So the segmentation is key, and segmentation can also be lateral. So if you're talking to, suppose, the creamy layer or the large farmer who has got, say, 20-acre and above land, then across geographies, you may find some similarity in their way of operating, in their buying, their decision making, and all that. So lateral segmentation is one way. Obviously, in spite of that, you will have to customize your. So I'm not really talking about language and all, because I think now everybody understands that if you have to go to rural India, you have to talk in their language. So that is very, very important. Second, what I have learned is listening comes very handy when you want to face the challenge of simplifying rural marketing. This customer wants a sincere listening, and especially when you try to do the market research to understand some similarity, some homogeneity in this heterogeneity which I talked about, and want to have an insight into the customer's purchase decision making process or his usage process and all that. The regular way of structured questionnaire is not the right thing to go with.
Okay.
So you want to understand this customer, and we have actually done this for our projects. Very broad 4 or 5 questions, which will kind of provoke him to talk, and then you just listen, and you want to tell his story, allow him to tell his story.
Regularly, or it is that the standard this thing is there?
Sorry?
You need to regularly modify the entire communication or the points which you are doing, or it is going to be over a period you keep on doing it?
No, so normally on the project basis we do in a very structured way, where the customer is provoked to talk, and then we try and listen to him, even record the conversation completely, because to decode the conversation and what he really meant by it, probably sometimes you need to listen it over and over. The challenge is to convert that language data into an actionable data. So a typical market research gives you a quant data, which helps you decide, analyze and come out with certain outcomes. But here, what you get is language. And how do you convert that language data into an actionable data? So there is a process of KJ analysis and all that, which we have been using to decode from what he is trying to tell us and what he actually means. So there, another interesting process which we came across was laddering.
Okay.
So laddering is essentially, before you go into into discussion with rural customer, you try and collect all the terminologies which he uses. So from your sales teams, from your local dealers and all that, you try and understand that terminology which he uses. And then those terminologies normally are at as we normally call it as a 10,000 feet level. So it'll be a broad terminology, like it's not, so he says it's not convenient, mujhe aaram nahi milta hai, suppose. But it should not stop, one should not stop at that. So there is a proper way of laddering, that how do you decode this aaram nahi milta hai, and you actually create a complete tree beforehand, before going to the customer, that if he says this, then my next probing is this, these 2 or 3 options. He chooses one option, then you probe 3rd level and 4th level. And there you exactly come to know that what he really means by Arami. So that has been an interesting.
Very interesting. I think this is something very new I'm hearing. And so, Farid, just tell me, you have been into tire industry for such a long period, and I'm sure distribution is a very big challenge in the entire market. And consumers, there is that they're very, very price sensitive market. So, how do you undertake this entire planning?
Ajay, I love to use the word value conscious rather than price conscious. So in my opinion, rural consumer is not price conscious. He is value conscious and value seeking. So he doesn't want to buy the cheapest product available. He doesn't want to spend less. He wants the best what he can afford. So now he tries to evaluate that the product which he is buying is worth the money which he is able to spend or not. Fortunately for us, it's not a very low ticket size product. It's a very high ticket size product. So when customer buys a pair of, say, tractor rear tires, he is spending almost 30,000 to even 40,000-50,000 rupees, depending on the size of tractor he has, which is a good sum of money for him. Also, he doesn't buy on credit. So this is purely or 90% a cash business, cash sales. So in that process, what he tries to do is, and because of that, it's a very high involved buying. It's not a low involvement buying. He is fully involved. He does his research. Then there are 2 moments of truth which are very, very important when you try to sell your product or show your value to this particular customer, is how you can demonstrate that this product will make his operations easier, better. So what is he seeking? So he is seeking that his productivity of his tractor should go up. His fuel consumption should not be so much. His downtime, which is the most important thing in his operation, the downtime should be minimized. So, and then this varies from market to market, as I said. If you're in South and West, you are in hard soil markets where the downtime and the damage to the tires and punctures are very frequent. Whereas you go to the softer soil markets of North, then these challenges are lesser. So idea is, again, you have to segment the market, build the right product. So you don't need to sell, a hard soil product, which is meant to take care of those kind of, adversities of which soil throws at it for the soft soil customers. So you provide the right value to the money and the expectation he has. That's what we try and do, have right products for the markets depending on their usage, their application.
So how do you devise a communication plan for this? So there is also a question which has come in just from Raman Murthy Sundaram. So he's asking for the same is how to make branding budgets is required for the rural. So my question to you is how do you devise a communication plan? Along with this, how do you devise your budgets? How do you spread your budgets really?
Yeah. Hi, Raman. Thanks for asking. I think this is one question which is always playing on a marketeer's mind, and
Yeah.
more so on the rural marketeer, because ATL is mostly not the option, and ETL has been, used done to death kind of scenario, the same van and man. So it's very important, and the key is to understand that what kind of product you're going to market, and what kind of value that product offers, what is the ticket size of that particular product. So if it's a low ticket size product, then obviously the communication plan has to be more at the awareness level, because the trial cost is very small for the customer. So if you attack a target mainly creating awareness and curiosity, so your awareness should not be plain awareness, but awareness with curiosity built in, then the ticket size is low. The customer will definitely be tempted to, and your communication should tempt him to try out. He will try out the product, and if the product has a good value to offer, I'm sure he will repeat it. But if it's a high value product and it's a durables, I suppose, and trial is not that easy, and it's not going to buy it very frequently, then the communication has to be designed in a proper way, that because he is not just looking at getting aware of the product. You have to and the communication should also be more of benefit explaining rather than your feature explanation. As a marketeer, we try and talk more about the features of the product, but customer is more interested in knowing that what is there in the product for me, or what I'm going to get. So that is important. Once that is decided, that what are you going to talk about, then comes that where do you put your money behind. So if it requires a physical demonstration, the touch and feel is very, very important. Without that, the customer will not buy. Then the money has to be put behind taking the product to the customer. And then you'll have to look at the congregation points, look at the places where you can demonstrate your products, those kind of things. But if it doesn't really require so much of a touch and feel and demonstration, then the communication should be more where you can get a little more time from the customer. So it's not a flash, like he just glanced through it, but you are able to engage with him a bit and explain your product to him. So that's how the communication design should be. That the product. And then there are mediums which are coming up today. So in addition to the regular mediums, I feel that digital is very, very important, already becoming very important. And it gives you such a huge power in the rural market, where I talked about heterogeneity in the beginning. This allows you to talk to that customer specifically about what he wants and what he is looking at. So if you are able to sharpshoot your content designed to that customer, to talk to that customer, then digital is the biggest platform today, though there is a lot of learning which needs to happen over there, that how to really leverage it. And one more point I would like to add here, Ajay, is that whenever a communication has to be designed, always try to remember the imagery, the reference imagery. So if the communication is for, say, Punjab customer, then the reference imagery which you use in your, say, collaterals and creatives, always show the local flavor. So so do not try and have one single creative and all Hindi speaking belt, we can go ahead with one single creative. No, the crops they grow, the turban they wear, the background they may have, those kind of things should be kept in mind while designing the communication.
Just being curious, Farid. So one creative you have developed, so you adapt to how many various these things? So you plan up a new strategy, the South strategy, or it is like for each and every state you have a different plan or different creatives?
Yes, Ajay, we do have that kind of thing. Also, what happens is, that certain markets are stronger markets for you, and certain markets are not so strong markets for you. So the brand is at different level in different markets. So somewhere you're already there, awareness is high, you are in consideration set. Where you lose out probably is at the conversion level. So there the strategy has to be purely designed to improve the conversion. But if in certain market you are not even at the awareness level, then there's no point spending money on conversion. Then you first build your awareness. I mean, entire money has to be put behind the awareness. And where the awareness is there, obviously consideration set. So consideration set is another different game altogether, where then that the customer knows about me, but perception is something which is playing a role in not putting the brand in his consideration set. So you try and work on the perception rather than awareness.
So, and how effectively are you using the social media and I mean use of the entire technology?
This, I think, we are also trying to learn. And I wouldn't be able to say that we are using it very effectively. There is a lot which can be done in this particular area. And I think one analogy is that there used to be a brick wall between the rural and the urban world earlier. What this internet or social media has done is that brick wall has converted into a glass wall. So now he can see through. Still, they both are in different compartments, but he is able to see through. So that influence has started happening, though he receives the influence and works in it his own way. And the way rural is today on social media, I think it's amazing. The new influencers are coming up. There are YouTube influencers, there are Facebook influencers, there are innovators who are giving advice. Now the farmers themselves are so much into this that they have a group of farmers perfected a particular technology, a particular business, a particular crop growing, and then they are giving out all the advice on the social media itself, and they have a lot of following. So huge amount of following happens through of these new. So I call them a new breed of influencers that is there. And second term, which I think is not being used so much as of now, is rural millennials.
Yes.
So millennials are being used. This term is more being used in urban context, but 37% of the rural population is today millennial.
Yes.
And these millennials have, they're literate, they have access to the outside world, they are tech savvy. Even if they are not the consumer, if they're not themselves consuming the product or buying the product, they are they're big influencers. And that is also where social media comes very handy, that can be used effectively to reach out to these millennials, rural millennials.
And how do you see the product loyalty or the brand loyalty for any products?
Okay, this has been a concept that rural customer is very loyal. You win him once, you do not lose him. This is also changing very fast. And I use the term of glass wall. I think that is also very big influence today. So my experience is that this new gen customer is actually very experimentative. And earlier the concept used to be a lot of about social approval, that what I buy and go back to my village with, whether people will approve it or not, whether society will approve it or they'll make fun of me. This is changing to a certain extent. The new generation customer is more interested in I buy something and go back to my village, and the others are interested to see what I have bought. And he wants to talk about it. This loyalty thing, I think, is changing fast. They are experimentative. They want to try out new things. They want to themselves experience and decide that what is right for me, rather than just sticking to what they have been. This all is also, again, those social, unknowingly and knowingly, those social factors, economic factors are playing out. So when you have a better risk-taking appetite because of your economic situation, you will experiment. When your cultural shackles are breaking, you will experiment. So psychological factors, social factors, literacy, economic factors, all those factors are influencing the behavior and this behavior which we're talking about.
So, Farid, can you share some good success story or a case study during your strategizing of various communication plans or reaching to the rural market, and a story that has been really become a success as such?
Uh, sure. So before I cite a recent example, I somehow remember a very old example. I think, but it's an interesting example. I'll share that. Long back, I think in the early 2000s or late 90s, a hybrid seed company had a major issue with their hybrid bajra seeds. The crop, they're very known brand and well successful brand, but the crop failed. Major failure happened in the market because the seed got infected with the downy mildew disease. So next year was gone for them. They thought, everybody thought that they just cannot make a comeback. This brand is gone. The treatment to downy mildew was in seed treatment, which you cannot 100% ensure that customer will do it on his own. So an interesting thing was done, that the seed was treated at the company itself for this disease. But important was that how do you make the customer believe that it has been treated? Why he will trust you that it has been treated? So, which has nothing to do with that treatment. A pink dye was applied on the seeds.
Okay.
And a big communication was made in the market saying that pink color is the medicine which has been applied on these seeds, and this will keep the seed free of this disease. Believe me, it was such a huge hit that following year and over a couple of years, every company had to make their seeds pink.
Interesting.
So that became the order of the day. If your seeds are not pink, people thought they're not treated. They're not treated. So a crisis was converted into crisis was converted into
very important for a brand to think very differently. I mean, I'll not use the word out of box because there's no box. That's what I believe. But they have to build up something, and this all comes from your learnings. The things you mentioned was ladder. I think I found a very interesting word. Why? Because when there's a proper repository of all the information, and you're seeing that how the consumers are behaving, then you really can build up your strategy accordingly.
Yeah, for sure, Ajay.
So great, Farid. I think we're just running out of time now, and thank you so much for being with us, Farid. And in case, my friends, you have any questions, I've seen a couple of more questions which are there, but we are running out of time now. And in case you have any questions or anything, you can always write to us at my email ID, or you can log into ruralmarket.in. And if you've missed any video, you can watch us at the Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Twitter or any other social media. And if you have any questions to ask from Farid, you can always ask him, and we'll share the details with you. Thank you so much for being with us.